will be voicing Give Up the Ghost by Lexicon. And quick disclaimer, the story isn't mine and the characters mentioned in this fanfic isn't mine either. So I will be putting the links in the description and enjoy. Hey, Axe, Viper called out cautiously. The hunched figure in front of them took a single staggering step forward. Blue grabbed his friend's arm tightly. Something wasn't right. The skeleton monster looked more wrong than usual. Viper cleared his throat and tried again. Axe, are you okay over there? We haven't seen you for a few hours. The figure let out an ungodly shriek that sent chills down the boys' spines. Axe might have been strange, but even they could tell this was definitely not their friend. Walls have ears, doors have eyes. Trees have voices, beasts tell lies. Beware the rain, beware the snow, beware the man you think you know. By Songs of Sapphire. Autumn was in full swing in the little town of Ebbot. The gigantic trees that surrounded the buildings and houses were in the middle of changing from brilliant greens to fiery shades of red, orange, and yellow, and drifting down to cover the lawns and sidewalks so they crunched beneath the booted feet of the residents going about their daily lives. The air had taken on a crisper tone, and the balmy temperatures of summer were slowly dropping to the cooler ones of fall. Shorts and tank tops were traded for jackets, long pants and leggings, and flip-flops and sandals for boots and tennis shoes. Viper was spending a quiet evening at home. His older brother was off with their group of friends at the local pumpkin patch and corn maze for the night. He had decided to stay behind and review all of the reports he'd missed while he'd be on vacation. He was sitting in his living room trying to read the messy writing of the guards, but he kept getting distracted. The distraction came in the form of a small hyperactive skeleton monster nicknamed Blue. His friend had come over to keep him company while the others were out. Viper had been slightly suspicious when the other had come bounding over with a family pack of tacos and one of his favorite movies. According to Blue, pumpkin patches and mazes were boring and he was itching for the company of his best friend. Viper actually managed to go through several reports before Blue finally brought up the true reason he'd come over. A camping trip? Viper's tone was flat. You are aware that we have actual jobs to go to, right? He stared, unimpressed at his friend, who only continued to smile widely at him as if he hadn't just made the weirdest suggestion ever. He leaned back against the arm of the couch with his stupid grin. An empty box of blueberry Nutri-Grain bars lay on its side between them, along with a half-empty taco box, while the TV played the movie softly in the background. Okay, hear me out, he had explained. My follower count has hit a major plateau, so I was searching the internet for ideas and I found this park that has supposedly some old haunted buildings in it, and I think a trip might be just the thing to reverse my fortunes. And I know for a fact that you could use a break from all this boring paperwork. Viper glared at him in disbelief. I should have known that this was some stupid bit for Instagram, he muttered. Blue gasped in mock outrage and placed a hand over his soul. I can't believe you say something like that, he pouted. Maybe I'm feeling particularly adventurous. Something wrong with that? Viper raised an eyebrow. 3 things, he said, fighting back a grin. 1, you absolutely hate nature, remember? That's why you refused to go to a corn maze? He set his paper down on his lap and held out a finger. He had a feeling he wouldn't be getting any more work done tonight. 2, you once told me that the only way you could be happy was being surrounded with Wi-Fi. And 3, A cabin out in the middle of the woods is a pretty precise combination of both the things you hate. Blue rolled his eyes. My point still stands. We deserve a break and we'll obviously go over the weekend, he grumbled. Viper grinned, knowing that he caught him. Right, he said and leaned back against his own armrest. So, besides the obvious point of how you hate everything about camping, how the hell did you manage to convince Swappy to let you out of his sight for an entire weekend? Blue raised a knowing eyebrow. Viper really didn't appreciate that look. What? He asked warily. I hate it when you give me that look. Blue grinned sheepishly. Well, he and I have come to an understanding. He agreed to let me do this one challenge as long as I agreed not to go alone. Viper blinked. Yeah, not really interested, he answered stiffly. Why doesn't Swappy go with you? Blue deflated. He slumped over and crossed his arms over his chest. Come on, Grandma, he whined. You and I both know that Paps would just spend the whole weekend sleeping. And I'll promise that it'll be fun. Viper rolled his eyes again and picked up his reports again. He straightened them up and tried to go back to reading them. You and I must have very different definitions of the word fun, he commented. Blue quieted down after that. It couldn't have been more than 10 minutes before a skull appeared in his line of vision. Blue, he said, what are you doing? The other monster looked up at him with sad, cyan eyes. Viper, Blue whimpered. How can I go without my bestie? Well, god damn it. Why did he have to pull out the puppy eyes? He knew they were his fucking weakness. He sighed and once again set aside his work. He knew a losing battle when he saw it. When is this supposedly life-changing trip happening? Puppy eyes vanishing completely, Blue grinned. Next Friday. Paps is helping me get some new equipment for the video and safety and things, he said. Blue was getting excited again, tiny stars lighting up in his bright blue eyes. He stared at his friend with an unreadable expression on his face. So, just so I have this straight, he asked. You want me to go camping in the woods all weekend? Just you and I alone in a creepy haunted cabin? Blue bit his lip, suddenly unsure. Yes? He asked with wide eyes. Viper cringed at the return of his puppy eyes. He groaned and covered his face. Fine, he said, but if this blows up in your face, don't come whining to me. The evening air was cool and getting colder by the minute as the two friends stood beside Swappy's car. Bags heavy with clothing and equipment and jackets zipped all the way up. The older monster had agreed to let his brother borrow the vehicle since he could just shortcut anywhere he needed to go. Blue leaned against the bright orange hood, scrolling on his phone, more than likely to updating his Instagram. It was nearly 5 o'clock and the two were anxious to start their trip. Unfortunately, they were being stalled by both of their older brothers puttering around them, making sure that they had everything they needed for the weekend. Swappy had even splurged and gotten Blue a long-distance radio beacon in case of an emergency. Are you sure you're gonna be alright, bro? Swappy asked, double-checking Blue's pack. Blue rolled his eyes and looked up from his phone. He knew that his brother was worried. That didn't make it any less irritating to deal with. It's 3 freaking days, bro, he snapped. I'm sure that Grandma and I can handle ourselves for that long. Swappy frowned. He still didn't look happy. Viper wasn't faring much better with his brother. I have a bad feeling about this, Pup whimpered. What if something happens and you can't reach us? Viper placed a hand on his brother's shoulder. Like Blue said, it's only 3 days. Just make sure to feed Kiwi and Iris will be there if you get bored. Pup pouted but nodded anyway. Can we go now? Blue whined. We're already going to be driving like an hour and it's getting dark. Swampy huffed and drew his brother into a tight hug. All right, you shit, he laughed. Let me know when you get to the motel, okay? And try to keep us updated. Love you, little brother. Blue hugged him back. Love you too, Paps, he replied. I love you too. The Swaffel brothers embraced briefly as well. Pup gave him a tearful goodbye and pulled away. Blue and Viper hefted their bags to put them into the back of the car. They got into the vehicle and waved once more to their brothers. Finally, they were off. The first 20 minutes were spent with the friends jokingly ribbing one another about various things. Viper was immensely amused about the outfit that the ever-stylish Blue had chosen to wear. I thought we were going camping, he cheered with a grin, not lumberjacking. Or did I miss the memo? Blue stuck his tongue out at him. Laugh it up, Grandma, he quipped. You and your hipster team ensemble aren't much better. What made you think wearing ripped jeans into a cabin in the woods was a good idea? Viper laughed and settled against his seat. I wore an actual jacket, didn't I? He said in his defense. He laughed again when Blue poked him sharply in his side. Whatever, he huffed. Thanks for coming with me. The drive seemed to take forever, as the scenery changed from cold asphalt of the town to gravel and tree-lined roads. The sun was very nearly set, causing light shadows across the road as they drove. As the temperature fell, Blue turned the heat on low so that they wouldn't start getting cold. The cabin they were headed to was near the edge of the backwoods country, an hour and a half outside the campus. The region was covered in expansive forest and nature trails. There were a few people who kept vacations home around the area, but for the most part, the only ones who went to the trails were campers and bikers who wanted to explore the maze-like trails and caves. So, where exactly are we going again? Viper asked boredly. Blue shot him a look. We have been driving for a while, Blue. They had been driving for 45 minutes. Maybe we could grab dinner before we get to the hotel? Is there a diner or something nearby? I like the way you think, Grandma, Blue snickered. I haven't eaten since like noon and I'm freaking starving. Viper glared at him. You are utterly ridiculous. How did you forget to eat for that long? He said. Blue blew a raspberry at his best friend. And to answer your question, he continued, ignoring Viper's last comment, we're headed to the Black Rock region. They drove in silence for a while longer when Viper decided to search up the cabin they'll be staying in. Blue tapped his fingers on the steering wheel as he drove through the darkening scenery. Viper pulled his phone from where it sat in the cup holder. He winced as the car hit a bump in the road. We're almost to the hotel, I promised, Blue said sympathetically. Thank God. I swear if you hit one more pothole, we're going to find out if magical skeletons can barf, Viper shot back. He did his best to ignore the rattle of the car as he typed the region name onto his web search engine. Most of the articles that came up were the standard weather and hunting games reports. There were a few mentions of people who had done out of the ordinary things, such as catching a fish the size of a tire or some weird story about a deer or squirrel. His eyes widened when he caught sight of an article further down the list. Wow, I could have guessed that the area has a bit of history, but this is morbid, he said, interrupting the silence. How'd you find this place again? www.iwanttodiehorribledeath.com? The car was silent for all of 5 seconds before Blue piped up irritably. It was on a list of cool local campsites, he said. What exactly are we dealing with here? Witches? Ghouls? An army of people with Edge's terrible fashion sense? Viper bit his lip. A sudden uneasiness sinking in his stomach as he clicked on the related article at the bottom of the page. I have no idea, actually, he replied. Most of the pages are about people going missing and winding up in strange locations when they're found, or worse, coming up in extremely disturbing positions dead. Silence reigned once again in the jeep. Disturbing how exactly? Blue asked quietly. Viper scrolled through the article he was currently on. Well, for starters, the whole region used to belong to this Native American tribe, and of course the settlers forced them off. The guy in charge of the resettlement was a real nasty asshole who basically treated the natives there like complete garbage. That's pretty far for the course in human history, bud, Blue commented. Viper cleared his throat to get him to stop talking. Well, apparently in the 1700s, there was a whole uprising led by the chief, and they managed to kill or defeat a lot of the soldiers. Despite the topic, Viper couldn't help but find the story interesting. I sense a but coming? Blue asked warily. Viper continued scrolling, summing up the rather long article. Well, this chief was ultimately caught and the rebellion was put down. The captain ordered him to be banished into the surrounding forest, where it was assumed that the elements would kill him, given that it was close to winter. Anyone who was caught helping him would face execution by hanging. And there it is, mutters his friend. Viper hummed in agreement. Yeah, and this is where the story really gets dark, he said. Oh, now it gets dark. And here I thought that the systematic oppression and genocide of a group of people sounded like so much fun. You know, since humans seem to like doing it so much, Blue said sarcastically. The other skeletons shushed him and continued on. Viper stemmed the icy hold of anxiety down long enough to start again. Well, keep in mind that this is just a local legend, but apparently the chief was also a practitioner of some pretty dark stuff, and when he was banished, he cursed the land and all who dwelled on it. He said that the land would never again bear the descendants of any living person, and that the land now belonged to the spirits that the soldiers had wronged. Any who dared to trespass would suffer a fate worse than death. The captain wrote it off as the ramblings of a madman and paid the warning no mind. That winter, when the rebel chieftain was supposed to have died, several children of his very own tribe mysteriously disappeared. The natives blamed it on the chief's curse and the continued occupation of the European captain and his men. There was another rebellion, and this time they succeeded. The captain was forced to flee, and the natives hoped that this would quell the curse. But the very next winter, even more children vanished. Ultimately, the land was abandoned in the early 1800s. Right, said Blue. So, a mysterious curse that seemed to prey on children. Fantastic. Good thing we're responsible and capable adults. Anything else we should know about? Viper's brow furrowed. He wasn't sure if he should tell this friend the next bit. The uneasy feeling was growing with every passing tree. It says that everything remained peaceful and the supposed curse was all but forgotten about until about 50 years ago. The strange incidents picked again when the park first opened. The incidents began with the supposed drowning of 19-year-old Elisa Murphy. The teen was a champion college swimmer and had gone camping with her parents for the weekend. The morning of her disappearance, she'd gone to swim laps in one of the small lakes near their campsite. In front of like 11 eyewitnesses, the girl was pulled into the by someone said was a ghostly hand. Her body was never recovered. Well, that's slightly more disturbing, remarked Blue. The other hummed in response. From there, it looks like things just keep getting worse, and the bulk of the incidents are centered around this particular stretch called the Warrior's Respite. There is a story where a mother and the 3 kids were vacationing in one of the cabins and were all found brutally slaughtered inside their beds. No one recalls seeing anyone other than family entering or leaving the cabin the day or the night they were killed. An ex-boyfriend was brought in for questioning, but the case is still unsolved. More recently, a young boy named Robin Davis disappeared from the site he'd been camping at with his grandfather. The party that was sent to search for was never heard from again, and there were still no signs of Robin. A second party was formed to look for the first one and the little boy. The boy wasn't found, but they did find the first party. All 10 members that had included rangers, wilderness guides, and even hunters were found at the end of the Warrior's Respite near the entrance to the thickest part of the woods. All were ripped to shreds, and all of their internal organs were suspiciously missing. Oh God, gagged Blue. The second party immediately radioed for the police and waited for them about a mile away from the disturbing site. By the time the authorities arrived and were shown to the crime scene, every single body had been removed as if they had never been there in the first place. It had only been 15 minutes from the time the police were radioed and to the time they returned to the scene. Neither spoke as Viper finished the article. The only sound in the jeep was the music that grew steadily creepier as the second passed and the gentle hum of the engine. Outside, the sky continued to darken as the sun sank lower below the horizon. The trees that lined the sad one-lane country road were taller, older, tossing eerie shadows that seemed to stretch forever in the rapidly fading light. It doesn't get much better from there, Viper eventually said when the air in the jeep grew too thick for his liking. There's a few more related pages if you want me to keep going. The swamp skeleton shrugged beside him. Beat staring at the rocks on the road, I guess, he said. Viper chewed on his lip again and clicked on the next page. Okay, he started again. It looks everything is quiet until like 3 years ago when 4 college students went into the woods beyond the Warrior's Respite. They wanted to see if the rumors of the curse were true, so they left on a Monday night in the middle of summer. No one heard from them until Wednesday the following week. One of the teens, 20-year-old Shay McWilliams, was seen stumbling into a ranger station over 100 miles away with torn, bloody clothes and cuts all down her arms and face. When they asked where she had come from and where the rest of her group was, she simply replied with a pale face and blank eyes that the fakers had them. The rangers asked what she meant by that, but the only thing she would say was that the fakers had stolen them and they were gone now. Shay was taken into protective custody to try and get more information out of her, but she was deemed mentally and emotionally unstable and admitted to a psychiatric ward at a local hospital. And just like every other story, no trace of the other 3 has ever been found. Viper found himself shivering in horror. The police and rangers have since tried to question Shay twice about what happened to her and her friends during the week she was missing. The only thing she has said is that the man in blue saved her. Jesus fucking Christ, Blue, Viper breathed when he finished. I thought we were supposed to be taking a break from the stress and craziness of work, not driving headfirst into Creepy Town, USA. Why do people still go to this place? Blue shrugged uneasily as he guided the vehicle around a sharp bend. By now the sun had completely set and the only lights around was the headlights and the soft glow from the moon and from Viper's phone screen. I highly doubt there is some mysterious Native American spirit in the woods, kidnapping children, murdering and dismembering people, and then hiding their corpses, Blue said, trying to reason around it. Yeah, but how did you not look at any of these stories before deciding to go on this stupid trip? Viper asked shakily. What's more, we're less than 2 hours from this place and never heard a goddamn thing about any of this. And what about that girl who had the fucking meltdown? I don't know, Blue. I don't trust this at all, he sighed, turning off his phone, putting in his jacket pocket. Blue shrugged. It was a little unnerving how casual he was being about all of this. People go missing in the woods all the time. The news can't possibly cover every single case. And most of these stories sound like they just took the history of Mount Ebott and embellished it to make it sound scary. I'm sure we'll be fine. Viper twisted and fidgeted in his seat. That still doesn't mean that it's not fucked up, he muttered, crossing his arms and glaring. Maybe Paps was right about this. All in favor of ditching and going to see a movie instead? Blue scoffed. I swear there's nothing to worry about. What happened to the big tough captain of the Royal Guard I know? Still wondering how he was duped into going on this nightmare trip, he snapped. Besides, it's way too late to go back out now. We're in the town right before Warrior's Respite. In fact, while the two had been busy bickering back and forth, Blue had steered them into the parking lot of a small hotel, lively and bustling with other travelers and truck drivers on the road with their loads. As they parked, Viper tried to calm his pounding heart. His best friend was right. There was nothing in these woods. Every place had its own urban legend and stories that they told to keep their kids behaving. They took a deep breath and went to open his door. He and Blue were going to have a weekend of senseless bonding, and then they would return to the stress that was their lives on Monday. Everything was going to be fine. He was sure of it. Chapter end. Well, I really like this one. And yeah, I hope you liked this too, because yeah, I don't know. My voice sounds terrible and my English sucks, but yeah, I hope you enjoyed.